Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nature Stream. I'm your host. Oh, we'll get to this in just a moment. Well, Cardinals are coming today. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the stream. Thanks for joining the replay. We'll be starting in about 10 minutes. I'm doing my normal run around and get things done before the stream starts. My A+ study group is right now, ! Click, click here to join us. And /live. That would be us. This is our A+ study group today. I have some delightful questions for you. So if you look at professormesser.com/live, there's a link there and all the things you need for Socrative. You'll want to get into there either on your mobile device using an app or the website, or pop open a new tab and go to Socrative. All the details are there on professormesser.com/live. If you're not watching live, if this is a replay for you, then I'm sorry, you won't be able to do that. Hi, everybody. Hi, chat room. Well, you say that, Curtis. Curtis in the chat room says hubs are good, switches are outdated. You say that, but I have a funny story about that. Back in the day, this was during the days of Interop, which was a trade show that was originally designed to highlight the interoperability of different manufacturers' devices and ultimately turned into just a big networking trade show. But it was when ATM was all the rage. ATM, brand new switching technology. It worked for voice. It worked for data. It worked for video. It was the network of the future. We will do ATM everywhere to the desktop. It's going to be awesome. You kind of see how that worked out ultimately in the whole big scheme of things. But at the time, ATM was a big deal. And the entire show floor was connected together with ATM. And they highlighted that ATM connectivity on the show floor. And if you went over to one of the racks that they had set up with all the ATM equipment, there were flashing lights and big chassis and fans running and cooling systems. It was amazing. And I noticed right at the top of the rack, not in the rack itself, but laid on the top of the rack, was a 10 megabit Synoptics hub. Synoptics, back in the day before they were purchased by, I guess, Bay Networks and ultimately turned into the big behemoths that they were. But they were bought at the time. At the time, it was a 10 megabit hub, and that was really what was connecting everything together in the entire show floor, was a 10 megabit Ethernet hub with the big banner on the top that said ATM. So switches were outdated. Well, not outdated at the time, but hubs were much better, as it turns out, than those ATM switches were, because we didn't know if they'd work or not. We needed something to connect this stuff together that we could guarantee that there would be some type of connectivity of what's going on. Let's check our cameras, shall we? Let's check our cameras. Camera one. Hi, how you doing? Camera two. Here's camera two. Camera 3 is, what is camera 3? That's the bird feeder. And camera 4 should be my presentation, and it is. What about my bird feeder with me in it? Hi, how you doing? How about the presentation with me in it? That works too. Yay. All right. Well, that's good. We'll be starting here in about 6 minutes and 20 seconds, my time. You're delayed by about 15 to 20 to 30 seconds. Not 30 seconds, probably 20 seconds. A little bit. If you are watching this on YouTube, you'll notice there's no chat there. All the chat is at professormesser.com/live/live. All right. We've got a beverage. I have updated website. Let's make sure that the tweeter went out. Let's get rid of this. Let's check. See, it's right there on the screen. You can't see it on the screen. Tweeter. Let's go to tweeter. Did it go out? Did it work? Is it there? When did it go out? Did it go out 5 minutes ago? Yes, it did. Did it? Oh, it did not. Oh, it goes out in 15 seconds. That's why it's not there. It's not there. What are we going to do? Wait 15 seconds is what you're going to do. Okay. What else do we have going on today? Recordings are going. Recordings going here. Recording on the web for whatever that is worth. Because if it doesn't work here, it's certainly not going to look very good on the web, is it? What are you going to do? All right, that should go out by now. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. So the Twitter works. All is good with the world. The room name for Socrative is Professor Messer, all one word. It's on professormesser.com/live. All the Socrative information is right there. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, yes, good old coax. Love coax. I miss coax. One little problem brings everyone down. It's always a problem. It's always an issue. Oh, and there's my calendar telling me I have a study group. I should probably set that alarm a little bit earlier, don't you think? Oh, it's Cardinal today. Very nice. Nice day outside. Beautiful weather. 82 degrees Fahrenheit. 27.8 degrees Celsius. Had a storm a couple of days ago. Everything is fresh and green. Springtime is here. It's all good. Starting here in another 4 minutes, everyone. On my website is the live event chat. That's the one I'm looking at. There's also a general chat. I don't usually glance over to the general chat room during the live stream. Usually it is just whatever we're doing here. So, oh, the woodpecker obviously running off everyone else. And they're back. Welcome, chat room. I see you folks are showing up. Let me have a look and make sure you're actually showing up. Be nice if I could look at my statistics, my analytics. Yeah, there you are. Who said you weren't coming? You're right there. You're right there. Socrative. You can find the instructions for Socrative on professormesser.com/live, where it describes the link for Socrative and the room name, which is Socrative.com, room name. Click the student login, room name, Professor Messer, which is pretty much what it says. It says that on the live page, doesn't it? Now I'm second guessing myself. Does it really say that on the live page? I don't know. Let's have a look. I noticed YouTube has updated their live thing. Did I put Socrative there? I keep saying it's there, and look, it's not there. See? What was I thinking? It's not there. I should add the Socrative information. Maybe we could do that right now in real time and mess up the whole page. What do you think? Good idea? I think so too. So let's put it there. Socrative. Let's put it just above the studio line, and let's put Socrative. We probably should do an href, Socrative.com, with a target equal underscore blank, so it'll open up a new window for you. And Socrative.com, room name, student login, room name, Professor Messer, and end of line. Let's see how that looks. Let's preview our changes, everyone. Isn't this fun? You don't get to see any of this because I'm doing it on my other window here, which you don't see normally. You always see the windows in front of me. You never see the one to the right. It's a super secret private window. I can put anything there, and well, I guess you can look over my shoulder like you're doing now to see it. That's not normally the way it works. So let's see, how are you doing in the chat room, everybody? You're doing very well. Very busy on the website right now. Go figure. Everybody loading the page. There we go. Now we got a preview. Previews take a while to... Oh, I like that. Okay. That preview stays there. So let's keep it. I'm going to update the page in a moment as soon as my website catches up to me. There it is. Now the Socrative stuff's on the page. If you give it a moment, I'll tell you when you can refresh. and get the, oh, it's 12 noon. It's 12 noon. We should do something. Let's get rid of our birds at birdfeeder.live, which is in my backyard. And here's the thing here. And what should I show? Should I show a thing? Let's show a thing. Get this going. Click. And here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May 2017 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. This is the study group I do every month, and here we are at the beginning of May. May the 3rd be with you. Wait, that doesn't work. I guess that'll be for tomorrow. This is one of the things that I like to do thanks to your support, where we just show up, I ask you questions that you might expect to find on your A+ certification exam, and hopefully we can learn a little bit as we go through these questions today. There's quite a lot that is going on here at the website, the things going on at Messer Studios. I'm going to tell you all about these things today. For this first hour, we'll be doing Q&A. For the second hour is more of an after show. It's open phone lines. You can call in and ask anything. It can be A+ related. It might not be A+ related. It can really be about anything. It's my opportunity to do an AMA. You're going to really call in and really ask me anything. I also take questions from the chat room at professormesser.com/live. There's a live event chat that I'm looking at right now. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. I can see you all in the chat room. So as things come up, feel free to make notes, put questions in there. I will be looking from time to time. There, of course, we do these study groups for A+ once a month. We do a Network Plus study group, a Security Plus study group. A lot going on for the study group itself. If you're ever wondering when is the next study group and what are we doing, you should always go to professormesser.com/calendar and you'll know when the latest one is. You can also follow what we're doing on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or those places by going to professormesser.com/ the name of that social media site, /Facebook, whatever it happens to be. So that's one thing to always remember. If you are watching this for continuing education unit, you already have your A+ certification. This should work also for other certifications as well. And you want to get an hour of CEUs, sometime during this first hour, I will explain to you how to do it. If you have no idea what a CEU is, you can go to the CompTIA website and learn about the CEUs. If you're someone who does not have your A+ yet, then this doesn't apply to you. So only after you earn your A+ can you then earn CEUs. So something to keep in mind. So a lot of questions this week about when does the next A+ exam get updated? When is it released? When's the next version of it? And you got plenty of time. The A+ 220, 901, and 902 was released on December the 15th of 2015. CompTIA tends to do 3 years between updates. So we have plenty of time before you even have to worry about a new version coming out. And even then, there's an overlap period of months of time before they ever get rid of the current version. So the answer is always what I tell everyone. Never wait to get certified. Get your certification now, get it locked in, and then it doesn't matter what they do with the exam versions. You're already certified. There are 2 exams you have to take for the A+, the 220-901 and the 220-902. And you can see vastly different content on the 901, hardware, networking, mobile devices, hardware, network troubleshooting, whereas on the 902, it's more focused on operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. Which one's harder? Well, I guess it just depends on what topics you don't know that well. I think the difficulty level of both exams is about the same, but obviously the topics are very different. If you like these questions we're doing today, then you'll really like my pop quiz collection. These are 2 separate books, my 901 pop quiz collection, my 902 pop quiz collection, where I have 1,300 questions in there. These are not questions that we do during the study group. They are not questions that you will see us do in these live events. It really has about 700 questions in one and 600 questions in the other. I have multiple choice, performance-based questions. There's a lot in these PDFs. You can read all about it at professormesser.com/PQC. It stands for Pop Quiz Collection. Something to look at. If you're someone who would rather just get free questions, I can absolutely understand that. I'm with you. I take all of the questions we do during our study groups and I collapse them into 20 question test banks on my website at professormesser.com/popquiz. So there is some nice questions there that you can go through that might make you think about some of these topics, maybe something to think about. There are really hundreds of questions there for A+, so something to think about with that. These Study groups, by the way, are also provided in audio form afterwards. You can, of course, go to my website and watch this video replay, and who wouldn't want to see me? But some of you, for some reason, don't care for that. So you want just audio-only version, I've got you covered. ProfessorMesser.com/podcasts is an audio version. Usually I post those about a day after we're doing what we are doing here. There are other course notes and things. We're going to skip over some of the Cisco things that are out there and available. We'll talk more about that in the after show. There are also the live questions today. So here's where you can participate. You can go to Socrative.com, click the student login, and go to the room name, type in the room name, Professor Messer. You have to type that in. You have to make sure you type it properly, or there will not be a question. You'll be in a room with nobody, like you walked into the wrong room at school. This is when you have to type the name in, Professormesser. So if you type that in, you will see there's a question waiting for you. These instructions, by the way, I was telling everybody in the pre-show, these instructions to get to Socrative are at ProfessorMesser.com/live, except they weren't. So I added them, so you will now see them on ProfessorMesser.com/live. And if you follow those instructions to the letter, you will see a question here, just like this. And the question is, what country is the largest per capita consumer of chocolate? Wait, that has nothing to do with A+. Why are we talking about chocolate? Well, I like chocolate. This is a sample demo question so that we can see if you're getting into the Socrative room. Are you seeing this question on the screen? This is a performance-based question. This is not multiple choice. You have to type in the answer. And some of the people have put in answers like USA, France, Belgium, Switzerland, America, of course, my apartment. Very nice. Well done. Well played, sir. Well played. We have others list Germany, Mexico, Canada. I don't know if that's the correct spelling. Did I say that right? Canada, is that right? I'm told no, that is not the correct pronunciation. So what is, if you're seeing this question, then you are in Socrative properly. All you have to do is sit there. The screen will change dynamically when the next question appears. You don't have to touch anything else. So make sure you get that right. The correct answer for the country that does consume the most chocolate, Switzerland. Sort of makes sense now, doesn't it? Switzerland, #1 on the consumer list, 20 pounds of chocolate per capita. It's that per capita thing that really messes you up. Austria and Germany, #2 at 17.5 pounds per person. United States, #20. What's wrong with us? #20 on the list at about 9.5 pounds per person. Way down near the bottom of the list, one of the fewest consumers of chocolate is India at 3.5 ounces per person. Apparently they don't like chocolate in India. Very last on the list. May 3rd, by the way, reason for this particular question, today, National Chocolate Custard Day, which is why I gave you a chocolate question. So there, see how it all ties together? It's so great being on the live stream, isn't it? You really get to see what's going on. All right, enough of the chocolate questions. Let's talk about exam questions. One of the things that I've been doing on the study groups, and I've gotten some good feedback, is the first question is a performance-based question. This is very similar to when you sit down and take the actual A+ exam. The first questions you're going to get are not going to be multiple choice questions. The first questions you get are going to be a fill in the blank. They're going to be a matching. They're going to be asking you to put things in order from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. It will be something that is not a multiple choice question. So I have one for you right now that is not a multiple choice question. So this will be something to start us off. The question is, I'm going to click the next button in your Socrative. So it moves to this. And again, this is one where you have to fill in the blank. You have to type in the answer to this. And I'll explain to you how to do this in just a moment. So the question is, match the Windows utility to the function. Now, some of these functions will not match. We only have 4 functions, and we have 7 we have 4 utilities and 7 different functions. So I'm really looking for 4 of those in that big list. This is very common to what you'll see on the exam. So we have Performance Monitor, Event Viewer, Services, and Task Scheduler. And for those 4, you have to match them to 1 through 7. 1 is all administrative tools are available in one window. Number 2 is your hard drive is defragmented each Sunday morning. Number 3 is your computer startup process pauses to select an option. Number 4, each step of the boot process is logged. Number 5, a user's password must be reset. Number 6 is the network utilization during yesterday's file transfer is logged. And number 7, the print queue is no longer operating and needs to be restarted. Now, if you think the first 4 match up perfectly with A, B, C, and D, then you would answer A1, B2, C3, D4. That'd be an easy way to do it. Since it's fill in the blank, you don't have to type in all of those things. Maybe you think it's A7, B6, C5, D4. So whatever it is, match those up, put it in the fill in the blank, and I'm watching on my side as these things come along. So this is one of those things, by the way, that can really throw you when you sit down for the exam, is they throw something at you like this. You're already at a very high anxiety level. You're probably sitting in a room you've not been in before, in front of a screen you've never experienced before. It's a very new thing for a lot of people when they take their A+ certification. One of the things I recommend is you skip over the performance-based questions. You can do this on the A+, really most CompTIA exams. You can skip around. You can go to the last question first. You can skip around to another question. Not all manufacturers do this. For instance, Cisco, if you take a Cisco exam, you answer question 1, you click next, it goes to question 2, and you can't back up, ever. You can't hop around on that type of exam. But with CompTIA, you can hop around. So you might want to make a note of the question, click the flag button, so you're marking it, go to the next questions, get past these and go to the multiple choices. And then when you go through the multiple choices, maybe some of the multiple choices will jog your memory with the topics that you might see here. So that would be a very good way for you to try to get out of the mode of going through these very difficult, complex questions to begin with, get into the mode of multiple choice, and then come back and answer the multiple choice. That can really help you with those types of things. So this would be one. There's a lot of information here you have to read through. So I'm droning on. A lot of you are answering, though. I'm getting some answers in for the pieces. I'm looking at them in my other screen here that you can't see, my private screen with those pieces. This is one where if you are trying to work through a performance-based question, this is a type that they'll do. It may be matching on the screen is what you might do. You might be taking lines and moving them between different boxes on the screen. But because of the type of front end we have here, I'm just going to have you type in the numbers and the letters and match them up with those pieces. That should be something easy to be able to see with these performance-based questions. So let's see how we did with this one. I'm getting a lot of answers in. A lot of you are giving me some others. I'm looking at the answers here to see how you folks are doing. Some of you are doing very good with these. I think probably the majority of you have figured most of these out. So let's see how we did. We're going to skip over to the answers, and here we go with the answers. So match Windows utility of the function. So performance manager was the first one, and that matches to number 6. The network utilization during yesterday's file transfer is logged. Performance monitor is really good for this. It can log those statistics over a very long time frame. If you wanted to log CPU utilization of a machine for 24 hours, you could have it just begin capturing that data, and then you can go back and look at how things happened during the day if you wanted to. It's really a nice little utility. Letter B is the event viewer. Event viewer matches to number 4, where each step of the boot process is logged. That's exactly what you'll find in the event viewer. Under C services, the print queue is no longer operating, needs to be restarted. I saw a lot of you got that one right. A lot of you have had print queue problems, apparently, where you've had to go into the services, into the print server, and have stopped the print server, restart the print server, just so the printing will work properly. This is one also where the task scheduler, which is letter D, is one that you need to know, where your hard drive's defragmenting or is defragmented each Sunday morning. You can set up a schedule, put it into the task scheduler, and that will perform a function every day, every week, every month, however you'd like to set it up. A lot of flexibility. There was no Windows utility that matched number 1, where all administrative tools are available in one window. That would be computer management, had that been available to you. Your computer startup process pauses to select an option. You can configure that in system configuration. And number 5, we didn't choose either, which was a user's password must be reset. You'll find that under users and groups. So there's a good performance-based question to get us going. And again, this is something you'll very clearly see when you sit down for your exam. Maybe your strategy will be to skip over it and continue on and come back later. Maybe your strategy is to attack it straight away. Either way, make sure you keep an eye on your time. Make sure you don't run out of time. You want to be sure to answer every question on the exam. If you've got 60 seconds left and 10 questions, you may just want to guess. Don't leave a question blank. None of them will count against you. All it can do is give you more points if you happen to guess properly. So that might be something to think about as you prepare for your A+ exams. Let's do another one. Let's get another question down. Here's the next question on our list. And the next question is, you've started your laptop, but you don't have internet access. You see a link light. Your IP address is 169.254.228.109. Which of these would be the most likely reason for your internet connectivity issue? And because you can see I'm asking which of these, finally, a multiple choice question. Here, the different choices are A, your router is down. B, your internet service provider is down. C, your DHCP server is down. D, you did not authenticate with the correct credentials. Or E, your patch cable is disconnected. One of these is the right answer. Maybe some of you know what that right answer is and working through those pieces. Maybe some of you have been in this situation before. This is clearly a 901 question, isn't it? Being able to work through that. If you think you know what the answer is, don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to Socrative.com, to the student login, and click that student login button and go to Professor Messer as the room name. Just type it in, and maybe you'll know what it is and working through them. This is one, whenever you start looking at what to do with these challenging questions, always break down what you know it is not. These multiple choice questions tend to have half of them that don't even apply to the question. So I find that a good strategy on my exam is find the things it's not. It's a calculatus eliminatus. We're going to get rid of the things that definitely have nothing to do with this, and then maybe you only have two to choose from. It sometimes will help as well with all of those pieces. Maybe you know what those answers are. Make sure you put it in Socrative. I think a lot of you. Now I'm going to take a peek on my screen and see if you folks know what this one is. Not exactly a gimme today. Starting off with these networking questions, though. Some people aren't prepared for those networking ones during your exam, but maybe this is one that we can think about. So how do we do? Well, we can see that 74%, 73% said the DHCP server is down, but 11%, double digits, said your internet service provider is down. We're tied for third. That says your router is down and you did not authenticate with the correct credentials, and almost nobody said the patch panel is disconnected. Probably that link light being there was your clue with that piece. Well, 71% said, well, maybe your DHCP server is down. So why would that be? Working through those pieces. So we need to think about where we would run into those situations. I think that's where, whenever I start working through it, that's where you start to understand where these problems are coming from. So this is one where the real key, the real clue in this particular question was the IP address. The IP address turned out to be an API-PA address. This is an address, we call it in the networking world, a link local address, meaning that it provides you with a link to your local network, but nothing else. You can't get anywhere else outside of your network and working through them. So that's your real clue in being able to see those. You'll notice that from an IPv4 perspective, these link local addresses start with the 169.254.1 through 169.254.254. And that's your range for API-PA. If you ever see that IP address, that means for some reason your computer was not able to communicate and receive an IP address from a DHCP server. So that's how you know. You're clued in right there that for some reason I'm not talking very well to a DHCP server. These are automatically signed. Your system will use ARP to see if anybody else on your local network already has this IP address so that there's no conflicts. And then you've got at least connectivity to your local network. But obviously, you're not going to be able to communicate out to the internet. So if we look at what we answered here, indeed, our DHCP server's down. The 70% of you did get that one absolutely correct. And I think that's one where whenever you see this API-PA address, you should automatically think, why am I not communicating to my DHCP server? Because that's really what that indicates. You've set it up for DHCP and it's not talking there very well. So well done with that one. C was the correct answer. If my router was down, I would not necessarily have a 169.254 address, although maybe my DHCP server is in my router, but I asked which would be the most likely reason for this particular connectivity issue. This is something you will see on the exam, is that 2 or even 3 questions could technically be correct, but when I say the router's down, you would have had to maybe just assume the DHCP server's in the router, which is not listed anywhere on these questions. Never think beyond what the question is telling you. They will give you exactly the information you need to be able to answer the question. There will not be any guessing that you will need to do about the scenario. So although in some cases A might be one of the cases where that address would show up, it would not be the most likely reason given the different options that are available, because clearly C, your DHCP server is down, is the correct answer there. Also, your internet service provider down. Maybe your DHCP server's at your ISP. That'd be unusual, wouldn't it? But sometimes you do see that happening. Again, the best answer, though, in this particular case, the most likely reason is always going to be C here. So well done with that one. Let's do another question. Let's jump through this. We're moving right along now. The question is a Windows utility. So the question is, which Windows utility allows you to graphically configure safe boot options? Which Windows utility allows you to graphically configure safe boot options? And here's the possible answers. If you know what these are, answer on Socrative. Don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to Socrative.com and answer there by going to the student login with Professor Messer. Your possible options are Startup Manager, Event Viewer, Task Manager, Boot CFG, and System Configuration. One of those allows you to graphically configure safe boot options. Maybe you know that answer then. I think this is one that some of you have probably done this one before as well, safe boot options. Whenever I start going through and trying to figure out what the different options are, this is one that can really come in handy, especially if you're trying to troubleshoot a system. You need to start with a safe boot, but you want to configure how the safe boot is operating. This is a great way to do it, is using this utility, because everything is right there. You don't have to guess with any command lines. You can simply click a few options, tell it to reboot, and now it's rebooted with all of those options. Maybe you guys know what that is. A lot of you are answering this one straight away, so not a lot of Googling with this one. You know, one of the things I focus on, I want to give questions that are difficult enough so that maybe half of you know what these are. So if you don't know what the answer is, take a stab, take a guess at what it happens to be. But then if you get it wrong, you've actually learned something. So that's one of the goals with this study group, is to be able to do that piece. It's one of those that I think might help in working through these. So let's see how you answered the Windows utility that allows you to graphically configure safe boot options. Almost a tie for first. We're really torn on this one. 42% said System Configuration, 37% said Startup Manager, 17% said Boot CFG, 4% said Task Manager, and nobody said Event Viewer. Well, what if it turns out to be Event Viewer? Yeah, it probably isn't, though. 0%, nobody bit on 0%. So what is the right answer then? Since we're torn between the top two, maybe it is the difference between Startup Manager and System Configuration. Well, when you consider that Startup Manager was a graphical Windows utility that I made up that does not exist, there is no Startup Manager, then that probably leads us to System Configuration. And indeed, System Configuration is the correct answer here as well. System Configuration allows you to do a lot of different things, but the main screen on here gives you a lot of options for safe boot. There's the screenshot right there that shows you safe boot, and then you configure exactly the kind of safe boot you want and being able to work through it. You can say safe boot, give me minimal configuration, give me an alternate shell. Well, it doesn't have a network, but it does other things. Give me an Active Directory, so you can do an Active Directory repair and have access to that. Or maybe just load up Safe Boot and give me some networking functionality because I need to transfer some files across the network. So that becomes handy to have that capability there. This is really useful. There are ways to do this at the command line as well. There's ways to do really anything in Windows at the command line, but it's nice having the option graphically to go in, choose what you want. You know you didn't mess up anything with the command line. You can choose it, tell the system to restart, and now you've got exactly the right safe boot option that you were looking for. So if you looked at the different options we had, I've already told you, Startup Manager doesn't actually exist. There is no such thing. It would not be Event Viewer, but none of you thought it was Event Viewer either. Would not be Task Manager, which shows us the tasks that are running on our system, but it really has nothing to do with configuring Safe Boot options. BootCFG, an option that allows at the command line, I can do some interesting things with BootCFG, but BootCFG is not a graphical utility that allows me to configure Safe Boot options. The only option available is system configuration. That is the one where you really need to know, how do I get this system running? And of course, it does much more than just configuring Safe Boot options. You can go into system configuration and do quite a bit. Really nice utility. I use it all the time. So you might want to have a look at system configuration. You'd be surprised what you're able to do inside that great little utility. Well, there's lots of things you need to know for the A+ exam, not just all of these different options with these different commands you need to know, but of course, on the 901 exam, there's hardware and there's printers and there's command lines and there's troubleshooting that you need to know. On the 902 is operating systems, and you have to understand other aspects of security. It's all a lot of information to take in. One of the things that I've done is I've gone through every single one of my videos. I've grabbed all of the important information, all of the text, all of the graphics, all of the tables, all of the pictures. I've taken everything and put it in one place. And these would be my course notes. I have a set of course notes for 220.901 and a set of course notes for the 220.902. These course notes allow you to really see a lot of what you can expect to find on the exam. Here's my 901 course notes. So I've got information in here about memory and RAID arrays and the different options. There's even pictures of the different interfaces and connectivity and networking and fiber and operating systems. They're all in these course notes. Everything is there. Some of you take your own notes, and I think that's great. If you take your own notes, maybe these course notes aren't something that you're going to need right out of the gate. But if you're somebody who maybe has to skip over a few videos, but you don't want to miss anything, this also makes a very nice way to study. You've gone through a book, you've gone through videos, you need something to really focus down and get just the important parts of what you need to study for the exam. These course notes might be helpful for you as well. You can find out more about these at ProfessorMesser.com/A+CN. This is also, obviously, all of my videos are absolutely free to watch online, every minute of every video. Some people like to be able to give back to the website to keep all of these lights and all of these systems running, and I certainly appreciate it. This is a great way to do that. I don't take donations. I prefer to give you something for your money, and hopefully this is something that can also get you through the exam. So have a look at that at ProfessorMesser.com/A+CN. And thank you for all of you who mentioned the chat room and throughout the month that you purchased them. You really like them. Thank you so much for the feedback as well. There's also, by the way, people have wanted a book version of it too. So I created a actual physical book of the course notes. There they are. That's something available as well. Same link. You can find that all, ProfessorMesser.com/A+CN for the A+ course notes. And have them there. All right, let's do another, well, should we call this a performance-based question? Is this a performance-based question? I think this is a multiple choice question, but it is a graphical daily double. We'll say that. Here's the question for you. Which of these technologies would be best associated with this interface? So this is one of these things that they do on the exam is they'll show you an interface, but they're not asking you what the interface is. They're asking you what you do with this interface. This is a multiple choice question as to what these technologies are associated with this interface. Your options are digital subscriber line, external device storage, fiber optic networking, analog audio output, and cable modem networking. I think we followed the Star Trek model there, where everything has to have 3 words to be able to make it sound good. So I tried to do that. We have 3 words in there. The digital subscriber line, we have to realign the phasers to the fiber optic networking. There's always 3 words associated with that. So maybe you know what those are. Let's try not to mention in the chat room what those things happen to be. You instead want to go to Socrative and work through all of the different options available on Socrative. Make sure you mark the different option there. Maybe you know what those are. There's your Socrative link so you can find that and being able to have that there. This is one wherever I start looking through the different options and trying to figure it out. This is where I really start needing to understand the details. I need to know what all of these different interfaces do. The name just isn't enough. What it looks like is useful because then I can recognize it, but then I also have to apply it. I have to know the details of how does that work and how do I make these things happen. So maybe you know what those are. Let's see how we did in working through those. I think I would like to see this as well. And let's click how do we do. A lot of you already answered 129, 130. 55% said digital subscriber line. So that's one. 31%, a very strong number two, said cable modem networking. 9% said analog audio output. 5% said fiber optic networking. And 0%, nobody said external device storage for this particular image. Now, first thing we need to do then is figure out what this image is. What is this picture? What is this supposed to be? Well, this picture, for those of you that have figured this out already, is an RJ11. It's a RJ11 cable. It's the end that's commonly used for an analog modem. It's used for DSL. It's something used for phone line. We commonly think of it as the phone line for these and being able to work through this. And that's whenever I start looking through these too, I want to be able to find out what does it do? And that was really our question this time, is what does it do? This is something that you will see very often used with these RJ11 jacks that are in the wall. We're plugging these in. You might often see it referred to as a 6P2C type connection, where there are 6 positions inside of it, but really only 2 commonly. You see 2 conductors, just like the picture we have here, where there's just 2 wires inside of it, because that's all you need for a phone line and being able to work through it. There might also be some that you see might be 6P4C. Sometimes you'll see 6P6C, although that one is a lot less common. But you very commonly see the 2 and the 4 wire inside this particular connector. Some people have 4 wires, so you can run 2 phone lines through a single wire. Something we don't commonly do with network connections, but something very commonly done with these analog voice connections that we would work through. So if we look at our options available and what you guys answered, indeed, digital subscriber line is the correct answer then. That 56% of you that chose DSL, because that's how DSL is provided into our homes. That's one wherever I start working through the details of this, that becomes very handy to have that there. Whenever I want to work through how do I find the answers to these, you need to look up the interface type and then figure out how it is used. It becomes very handy to have that. So make sure you understand and there's a lot of interfaces on the exam, understand all of the interfaces, but then also understand how they are used. That's an important part of this. We're streaming through these questions very quickly. So let's keep the streaming going and answer a next question, which is, which of the following would best describe an embedded system? Which of the following would best describe an embedded system? So I have, again, multiple choice for you. That helps when it's a multiple choice. Which of the following? Well, would it be A, the BIOS must be configured to boot from USB. B, you keep spare drives in the RAID array. C, you use your smart card to clock in every morning. D, you're upgrading the memory in the web servers. Or E, all users authenticate to a central Active Directory database. One of these would best describe an embedded system. If you think you know what they are, you can go to Socrative.com to the room name Professor Messer. Click that student login. That gets you there. Don't click the teacher login. That's my login. You click the student login. And that gets you to the Socrative room, and you can type in Professor Messer. Make sure you type that in right, and you will find it. Whenever I start trying to break out these different topics and ideas, this is where the A+ exam really does try to get those questions here. And because I think it tries to go past just understanding a definition. It's very easy to do an acronym and what the acronym means. The A+ exam wants you to understand what the acronym is used for. It's good to know the name, and they may reference the name like I did in that last question, but they want to know how you use these technologies. So an embedded system is a good example, how you would use these technologies and work through them. And maybe you know what those are. Let's see how we did. A lot of people already answering this one, but I think we're a little torn with this one. Let's see how we did with this? Well, if we go with the highest number, 38% said all users authenticate to a central Active Directory database. 30% said use your smart card to clock in every morning. And then 20% said the BIOS must be configured to boot from USB. That would be a very good set. We got 3 really good answers here, and we're not sure that all of them are the right answers because we have even single digits that say you keep spare drives in the RAID array and you're upgrading the memory in the web servers. So let's talk about embedded systems and what they are. An embedded system is one that is a device that has been purposely built to perform a function. It may not even look like a computer. There might be a computer inside of it. There's certainly some type of operating system inside of this device, but usually you don't have access to that operating system. There's usually not even a screen. You don't have a mouse usually there associated with this. The system itself is embedded inside of something else. So you commonly see this with alarm systems, with door security, and with a time card system. And that indeed is the option that we have here. When we looked at the different options, 37% of you said all users authenticate to a central Active Directory database. That's a normal system. That's a Windows system, would not be an embedded system. 20% of you said the BIOS must be configured to boot from USB. The fact that you even have access to the BIOS means that this is not an embedded system. So keeping spare drives in the RAID array and upgrading the memory in the web servers, not embedded systems either. The one that is the embedded system, the proprietary, usually closed system that you normally don't have access to, would be that you use your smart card to clock in every morning. The 33% of you did get that one absolutely right. That would be the correct answer with this one. So nice job on that and getting those there, working through those. I think that's the best way to do it. By the way, some of you probably noticed in this embedded system, something wasn't quite right. I grab all these pictures, by the way, from a central picture set. It's a set of stock images that I license. So I can use all these pictures and I can use them and show them to you and have them on the stream and have them in my courses, and everybody's copyright is covered. Everybody's happy with what I'm doing with these pictures. But I'm all the time, you'll notice if you follow me on Instagram, I'm always finding weird pictures in IT on these stock photos. And this was another weird stock photo because I thought you are not going to be able to clock in very well with this particular, nobody knows you're there yet. How are you going to get paid if you can't operate the system that clocks you in? That stripe needs to be, even has a picture there. There's the picture. You should be holding it like this, sir. No, I'm going to hold it like this. Take the picture. You got the picture? Okay, good. Let's keep going. So your correct answer in this one, by the way, again, use your smart card. Use your maybe not so smart card to clock in every morning. That's the way to do it right there. Let's have a look at the next question. And working no funny pictures on this next question. Here's one we really do need to know, though. This is a pretty good question. Which of these commonly extend battery life through the use of electronic paper? Which of these commonly extend battery life through the use of electronic paper? Electronic paper, that's something that's in the CompTIA exam objectives. So it's something we need to know. Would it be tablets? Would it be phablets? Would it be smartphones? Would it be e-readers? Would it be smart cameras? One of these commonly extend battery life through the use of electronic paper. Somebody got onto me the other day because they saw one of the questions that I had in one of my sites, one of my pages on my site did talk about phablets. And they said you have a misspelling on your site where it says phablets. How quickly these terms go in and out of use. It's a real term. That's an actual thing. A phablet is a thing. And it is indeed in the CompTIA exam objectives. But after a year of being the objectives, we don't even talk about phablets anymore. That really happened quick. Went right away, was gone. And working through those. So maybe you know the answer. If you do, go to Socrative.com. You can absolutely work through these pieces. This is one where I think it does come in handy to know the answers of these. I'm going to take a peek at how we're doing with this one. I often say that on these study groups, I like to give one gimme. Try not to get 50% of you to get a question wrong. Maybe 100% of you might get a question right. This is probably your best choice this week at getting a question absolutely right with this one. I think a lot of you may have this technology. A lot of us have all of these technologies, don't we? A lot of us already have tablets. Many of us already have phablets, whether you realize it or not. Certainly smartphones, e-readers, smart cameras. Most of us already have these. Let's see how we did with this one. Well, there you go. E-readers came in at 90%. 89% of you said e-readers. Only 5 or 6% said tablets, 3% phablets, 1% smartphones, 1% smart cameras, and I can't stop saying phablet. Why? Why is that? E-readers is the right answer here because there is a very interesting technology that many e-readers will use. Some of the newer e-readers are the nice LCD color screens, but you will find that there is a very strong and very compelling reason to have some of these black and white e-readers that are out there. Some of them primarily used for book reading, but you'll find some are also used for music. There's some graphical capabilities in there as well. So it just depends on what you'll find with those pieces. But they use a special kind of screen that doesn't really use any power unless the screen is changing, which means you can have some text on the page like it is here on this electronic book. Then this is some compelling text. Let me tell you, here's the text. It's just lorem ipsum on there. You can find out more about lorem ipsum at loremipsum.com. There is, but now that this is on the screen, there's no battery that's being used. Now, when you turn the page, it uses the battery to update the screen, and it uses practically zero battery at that point. So these devices can last for weeks without any type of recharging. You can take them on a trip overseas and back and never recharge this device because it hardly ever uses any power. It's a remarkable technology. These also have other networking capabilities built into them, but will use the power, but certainly don't have to worry about that screen being the problem with the power. Some of these also have backlights into them, so you can see them. Really, they're front lights. They're not backlights. They're front lights. You need to be able to have light to be able to see these. They work very well outside because you're in direct sunlight is where they excel. A great technology in being able to use these. And so if you are looking at e-readers, 85% of you, that is the technology that really does extend the battery life, probably more than anything else, is what you will find. That's where all the things are that these e-readers, certainly more than tablets, phablets, smartphones, and smart cameras. Really, that is the best choice, the only choice, and very well done with that one. There's so much on the exam. If you look at all of the operating systems, all of the command lines you need to know, all the troubleshooting tasks you need to understand. You have to know Windows Vista, you have to know Windows 7, you have to know Windows 8 and 8.1. There's a lot of operating system differences there. One thing I really recommend people to do is not just watch my videos, but try to get as much hands-on as possible. Set up your own operating systems, install the operating systems yourself, or install some of these applications. Try troubleshooting with these operating systems. Start it in safe mode. Start it in a recovery mode. Try running those commands. But some of you don't have the lab set up to be able to do that across all these different operating systems. My friends at GTS Learning have just the solution for this. They have their live labs. And these live labs allow you to have virtual systems running on your screen, multiple computers simultaneously, and you're able to use them and operate all of these different pieces inside of these. These also, by the way, include their ebook. So if you get the live labs, you get the GTS Learning ebook, which also has my videos embedded inside of it. So when you read a section in the ebook about memory, my video is right there in the ebook as well. You either click to play it. If you get the physical book, there's a QR code to be able to have that there. You will see all of these live labs are available for you to look at professormesser.com/live labs. That's the link you follow to get the special pricing you see here. If you went directly to the GTS Learning website, you would pay much, much more. They give you a special discount for being on these live study groups or watching the replay. So the best way to get these prices is to go to professormesser.com/live labs, and you can learn all about these and being able to work through them. This is one, also want to thank the folks at GTS Learning. They've been great supporters of what we do here, great people to work with. I would not associate myself with them unless I really liked what they were doing as well. So you go check them out at professormesser.com/live labs. Let's do another question. Here we are. I'll click the next button on my side so I can read it to you a little better. And the question is, you've been assigned a software token generator on your phone for authenticating to the VPN. Which of these would be the best description of this? Which of these? So I have a list of things that would help describe a software token generator that you've been assigned. It's on your phone for authenticating to the VPN. Would it be something you are? Would it be something you have? Would it be something you know? Would it be somewhere you are? Or would it be something you do? One of those would be the right answer for this. This is something that comes up quite often when you're trying to struggle through some of these security topics on the exam, because this is something that's commonly done on here. It's very commonly done to have a company assign you a software token generator on your phone. You authenticate it to the VPN. You use this token generator, but what was that? Behind the scenes, in a big overall scheme of things, what are they doing with that? How does that work? So maybe this is a good idea to step through and figure out more about what's really going on here. Give me more of a policy answer of what this happens to be. And then it really helps you understand more about what you're looking at when you're dealing with these. This is a question that also will come up on, it would probably come up on the Network Plus exam, absolutely would come up on the Security Plus exam. So these are technologies that really apply across multiple parts of the organization. So it's important that you know what some of those are and being able to work through this. Maybe it's something you can work through as well. So let's have a look at what these possible answers are. We've had over 100 of you answered this one so far. 58%, very close to that 50%, something you have. Let's see, tied for second, I would say, would be something you do and something you know, and then single digits for something you are or somewhere you are. This is one where you do have to figure out those pieces and being able to work through it. What this is something called multi-factor authentication. We're not just relying on your username. We're not just relying on your password. We're relying on something else. Sometimes it's multiple other things, this extra factor. So you're putting in a password. Nobody knows what your password is but you. That's one factor. And then this other thing that is a software token. Maybe it's on your screen. You have to put in your username. You have to put in your password. And then it pops up in another, like this token that you see on the screen here. It pops up in this. So you have to put in your username, password, and that number. And in 30 seconds and 60 seconds, whatever the default is for your application, that number disappears and changes to a different number. So you have to be quick. This one gives you a little status green bar around the side. It turns all the way green before it changes to the next number. Sometimes you have to wait for the next number and then type that number in so that you can catch it at just the right time. And then it checks to know that the number that you've been given in this app is unique to you. Nobody else has this number. It's something that is definitely associated with your account as you're authenticating and being able to work through it. A lot of times it might be a hardware token. It might be something you have on your keychain, but a lot more people are going to these software-based tokens because it's just an app. And they used to charge a lot for those little tokens. They used to charge like 100, maybe over $100 for that little dongle that would be on your keychain. Then you'll lose it, and they charge you another $100. Became a problem. Everybody keeps their phone with them, so that's a great way to do it. But the question was, now that we understand what we're doing there, the question was, which one of these answers would be the best description of the software token generator? Well, let's break this down for us. Is it something you are? Well, you're not the app. Something we are would be something biometric, for example, like a fingerprint. Well, that's not what it's getting here. It's an app that's running on our phone. It has nothing to do with us as a person, so it would definitely not be something we are. Somewhere you are, this is something can be commonly done with these mobile devices. There's a GPS inside of it. It knows where you are. If you're trying to log in from China, it might prevent that. If you're trying to log in from Europe and your business is in the United States, it might prevent that, because that's one of the things that maybe does prevent someone from being able to log in because you know where they happen to be at that moment. That becomes handy too. So in this particular case, that has nothing to do with this particular app. We're getting a number that pops up on these. Let's see, would it be something you know? Well, it's not something you know. This is something random that's presented to you. You have no idea what this is until you see it on the screen. So it's really not something we know. It's not asking us something about our past. And what high school did you graduate from? What's your mother's maiden name might be something we know. The last, something you do. Well, it's definitely not something we do. A signature, for instance, may be something we do. It's a good example. Or a certain way that we put in a pattern on our phone might be something we do. But 59% of you said something you have. And indeed, that is the correct answer. We have our phone with us. We have this mobile device. We're the only one with this mobile device running this app who has this particular number. So if you're logging in with a username, you're logging in with a password, and you're logging in with this particular number, then we can reasonably assume this is probably you, because those three things are very unique to you. Nobody else has those three things. So that becomes very useful to have that there and have those pieces available. So that is absolutely the right answer. Those 59% of you, something you have is absolutely the piece of this. And being able to work through those pieces. In the chat room, people are saying the token pairs the token number with something you are. Well, the something you are was your username. That was the piece that is something you are. The token generator is not something you are. And you have to input the number, so it's something you do. Nope, doesn't work that way. The token, in fact, can be generated and input automatically. Just by bringing up the application in many cases. It's not something we're doing. It's something that we're duplicating. The action of doing it is not the multi-factor part. Having the number available, having it, something we have, is the multi-factor part. Pretty important to have that there. It's also not something we know. We had no idea what this number was until it popped up on the screen. It's not like we know that. It's something we have because we wouldn't have this number unless we had our phone or unless we had that special hardware dongle. So that is, it's an important distinction. These are very specific distinctions, but they are incredibly important in the world of multi-factor authentication and how these things are categorized. So it's important to know those and being able to work through them. So if you answered B, something you have, 59%, you got that one absolutely right. We've got time for another question. Let's keep these going. We're getting a lot in this week. I like that. We're getting through them. So the question is, here we go. In which of the following would you be most likely to use a toner probe? In which of these would it be most likely to use a toner probe? I have some options for you to have that there. I like how everybody's trying to break down multi-factor authentication. Yes, but you know how to read, so it's something you... No, it doesn't work like that. Would it be, which of the following would you be most likely to use a toner probe? Would it be a workstation cable needs to be attached to a wiring block? Would it be the interface on a router may be faulty? Would it be that you need to locate a specific workstation cable on a data center patch panel? Would it be that some devices on the network are using unapproved software? Or would it be that you suspect that there's a frequency interference on the wireless network? I hate that when that happens. But we're specifically wanting to know, in those particular circumstances, where would you be most likely to use a toner probe? Which one would it be for those? Yes, if you're wondering, if you're thinking that the multi-factor question was vague, I would recommend you go back and look through the multi-factor authentication. Those are very, very specific terms that we use in security, something pretty important. And that is an important part for the exam as well, and knowing those pieces. So make sure you go through those pieces as well and work through them. Whenever I start looking through these questions too, I like to break down the things I know. There might be some of these where, no, I wouldn't use a toner probe for that. I would use this thing. So maybe that's something you might want to step through as well. Try to figure out, we can get rid of that answer. Again, the calculatus, eliminatus. Get rid of that particular answer and be able to work through those. For those of you asking, are those questions part of 902 or 901? When I show you the answer slide at the bottom, I'm starting to put now where this comes from. Not just, is it a 901 or a 902 question? The multi-factor question was a 902 question, but I show you the video it was from. So you can always go back to that video and watch it to see where that content come from. So you can always rewind this video and look at the bottom of that screen. You'll see not just the name, but the exact, the exam objective number and the name of the videos is listed there. So you'll have that there. So this is one where toner probes come in handy. I have a toner probe around here somewhere. I didn't put it on my desk today. I was using it earlier in the week to tone back. What was I toning back? Something. I was using it for a particular reason. I can't remember what I had it there for. I do remember what I was using it for. And maybe it has something to do with this particular question. Let's see how we did. 83% of you said to locate a specific workstation cable in the data center patch panel. That is exactly what I was doing with my toner probe. It was in my house. I have a lot of network runs, go figure. And I have one I had not used before, and I needed to make sure it was where it went. I knew it went back to a certain number on the patch panel, but I didn't know which place on the patch panel. So I put my toner, the device that makes the tone, into where the workstation would plug into. And then I went over to the patch panel and used my probe to find out where I would hear the tone on all of those pieces and working through them. The toner probes, they look like this. There they are. Here, a good example of this. You can see this is a 229.01 section 4.4 network troubleshooting tools is where this is from. So that's how you know it's a 901 or 902 question. The toner probe's used from the figuring out where these wires go. There's nothing connecting. You don't have to physically touch the wire. You just have to get close to it. That's why we call this an inductive probe and being able to work through them. You don't have to touch the copper directly. You just have to be able to be outside the cable, which is great. Makes it very easy to find these things because you can be outside the cable and to be able to work through those again. And that's one whenever I start trying to figure out where the cable is. If you don't have a toner probe, you're almost lost in being able to do this. It becomes much more difficult. These are relatively inexpensive. You can get a very basic toner probe combination for 15, 20 bucks, maybe even less these days, and being able to work through those. So it becomes very useful to have this. I have two of them. I don't know why I have two of them, but I have two of them. I think one is a combination toner probe, and it's a cable mapping device. So one's just a toner probe. So there you go. That's where that comes from. Let's squeeze another question. We got time for one more. When you start your Windows computer, the screen remains blank without a login dialog. That's not good. The drive activity light's blinking. You can hear the startup chime. The screen's obviously black. Which of these would be the best next step? The best next step. Which would be the best next step? Would it be to run startup repair? Would it be to perform a system image recovery? Would it be to use system restore? Would it be to run BOOTREC / rebuild BCD? Or would it be to start the system in VGA mode? Which one of these would be the best next step? This is one of those questions, by the way, that's very specifically asking you for the best next step. There might be, in these steps, you might want to run through a few of them. But I want to know the one that's first, the one that's best next. That's the important one. They ask you on this on the exam all the time. They in fact, every single one of these could be something you could do to help troubleshoot this in a particular order. But it's effectively asking you, what's the first thing you do? And the first thing you do is probably, well, you'll have to figure it out. If you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com, click the student login to the room name Professor Messer, and you can answer this one as well. Which would be the best next step? Wonder which one it would be. Which one? It's not a trick question. People always say this. That's a trick question. It is not. There's a very clear answer here. A very, very specific clear answer here. You should often look at these and figure out, why would it not be the thing I'm looking at? That's what you need to work through. And I think that's where, whenever you start working through troubleshooting, that becomes the real challenge in being able to work through those, I think. The exam will very often ask you this. I think that's why a lot of people say, I got trick questions on the exam. I think the best next questions are the ones that drive the people really the craziest of these. Yes, which of these would be the best next step? That's another very good question in the chat mentioning. Do you mean which of these? Yes, of the ones listed, yes. That they give you a finite number. You might do something that's completely different than what's on this list. In fact, maybe the best next step of what you would be doing would be something else, but for whatever reason, you're not able to do that. You only have the choice of the ones listed here and having that there. So that's the one where I really want to break these down. In fact, some of you in the chat room are going, no, the first thing I check is this. Well, you don't have that option. Maybe that's not an option to you. Maybe, in fact, somebody said, I want to see if the monitor is plugged in, turned on. What if it's plugged in a different room? Can't see the outlet. It's not an option for you. You can only do these 5 things. Which one of these would you do? Let's find out. Let's find out what you would do. 69% of you said start the system in VGA mode. 18% said run startup repair. Like me, just go straight to the repair. 6% said run BOOTREC/rebuild BCD. And a tie for fourth, perform system image recovery or use system restore. So which one would it be? Well, we're missing the GUI. We've got a black screen. Something is happening. We even got the chime, like Windows is starting up. We can see the hard drives running. Something is happening. It's not like our system's dead. So something is there. So what is the challenge here? Well, we're assuming, of course, in this particular case, the monitor's turned on. We've got a light. They didn't touch anything with the monitor. It's brand new. So now want to be able to work through this. What is it? Well, the first thing, the easiest thing you could possibly do is to run in VGA mode. Did somebody swap the monitor out? Maybe the monitor out is just something that's not there. Starting in VGA mode is one of the startup options that's available in the advanced startup options when you use that F8 key when you're starting up Windows. VGA is the most basic rudimentary, not the most basic, but one of the most common basic rudimentary resolutions you run into. It's 640 by 480 resolution. It's something that really almost every monitor in the world these days can support VGA resolution. So if somebody happened to swap out a monitor and not change the resolution of a system, we know it would at least work in VGA mode. So it's a very common first step to be able to run in VGA mode when you're starting up your system. If that isn't working, maybe we want to run a system file checker. That's something you can run from the recovery console because you're not booting up the operating system in the GUI, you're booting up the recovery console instead, so you can at least see what's happening there. And updating the driver in safe mode, if it's a video driver, that might be useful to maybe problem with the video driver, configuration with the video drivers running our problem. If none of this is working, maybe then it's time to repair or to restore from a backup. Something can come in handy whenever you're working through these. So our options here, the one that is the easiest, the one that's the simplest to do, the one that would rule out a lot of other things would be to start in VGA mode. That is the simplest, easiest. We're not changing anything in the system. We're not modifying any files. We're not modifying the configurations. We're not making any changes to the operating system. We're just running through some things that are very innocuous, something that can at least, let's try this thing that doesn't change any part of your system and see if that happens to resolve the issue. 65% of you said to do it that way, and 65% of you were absolutely right with this one. But what about the other options? 19% said run a startup repair. We don't even know what the problem is yet. So it's not quite the point where we would run a startup repair. We haven't gone through all of the non-invasive issues. We want to do something that would not change anything with the system, troubleshoot as much as we can. Then if we decide, it's just not working, now we can do something that's a little bit more of a change to the system. You obviously don't want to make any configuration changes to the system or make a minimum number of configuration changes to the system until you're really in that corner. And that's what you have to do to be able to troubleshoot that particular problem. Would you perform a system image recovery? Again, now you're recovering from an image. You're just restoring from backup. You still don't even know what the problem is yet. We're just restore from backup, which may have nothing to do with the problem we're dealing with. And again, that's a dramatic change to the system and takes some time. It's involved. Certainly not the best first step in this scenario. Using system restore, again, changing the system configuration. We don't know why that is here. A lot of people are saying, but I don't see the screen. But you're starting in the recovery console. You're not starting with the normal GUI to the operating system. So you're able to start with a USB. You're able to do these other things. So obviously that would not be a good option either. You're changing the system in the system restore. And running a BOOTREC rebuild BCD, we don't know that our problem has anything to do with the boot configuration data, the BCD. And again, that's something that commonly doesn't change very much. It would be unusual for you to go home at night, you come in the next day, and your BCD is updated to something different. That hardly ever happens. These are really not very realistic. A through D are not very realistic options as your first step when troubleshooting. The really best answer here, which should jump out right at you now, is really E, start the system in VGA mode. That is the right one in there and being able to work through it. So that's why starting the system in VGA mode really makes the best sense, and to have this here and having that, being able to work through them. I think that becomes handy. Don't ever assume. In the chat room, we always want to assume different things about this configuration. in each one of these questions, and this is probably one of the best things I can tell you about the exam, each question is its own little world. It's only giving you exactly the information associated with this problem. Notice it didn't talk about power. It didn't talk about the monitor being plugged in. It didn't talk about anything else going on. It just told you the screen is black. And it really didn't even tell you what was happening prior to this or after this. It just said the screen is black. So now what do you do? There's really only one best answer in this scenario, and that would be what it is. Yeah, we know it's running. We can hear that chime. So something in there was definitely it. So if you did answer, start the system in VGA mode. That's absolutely the right answer for you to work through. Now, during this presentation, I have talked a lot about the exam objectives. You want to be sure you get these exam objectives. You'll find them. A quick link to them is the professormesser.com/objectives. You can also go to the Google, type into the Google CompTIA exam objectives. You will find them. This is the best checklist ever for your exam. People ask me all the time, what do I need to know before walking into my exam? You need to know everything in this list. It's your big checklist. This is where you go. There's nothing better than this. Nobody can give you a better answer to that question than know everything that's in this exam objectives. Incredibly important on your exam. Well, we do one of these every month. We've come to the end of this one. I even went over a little bit this month. Our next study group for A+ will be June the 7th of 2017. And in June, we'll be able to do another. Of course, I do another study group at the end of next week at the same time as Network Plus, the week after that, Security Plus. By the way, if you are watching this for continuing education credit, then you'll want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a link to Contact Us. And in that Contact Us link, you want to give me your name, your email address, and somewhere in there, you want to give me the word VGA mode. I read through these myself. So you can put anything else in there. I like the messages you folks are sending to me. I appreciate it. I can't reply back to every single one because I get hundreds of these CEU requests. I'm just sitting down at night and doing each one of them individually. They're not automated. So you're welcome to put anything in that message you would like, but somewhere in there needs to be the word VGA mode. And that way, and also mention that this is the May 2017 A+ study group because I have a lot of CEUs to go through. It helps if I know which one you're referring to sometimes. This is one that does come in handy. So maybe you can do that as well. It's one way to get a continuing education credit. It's one for a webinar. You can collect, I think, 10 of these or maybe fewer for the A+. Maybe it's 5 or 7 in a year's time. But it's something that can, of course, help accumulate if that's the way that you're planning to renew your A+ certification. Well, we've come to the end of another study group. I can't believe it already. If you'd like to, of course, follow what we're doing throughout the week, you can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Just type in professormesser.com/Twitter/Facebook/YouTube/ whatever it happens to be. Don't forget about my course notes at professormesser.com/A+CN. Of course, the folks at we've also got the pop quiz collection. Don't let me forget about that at professormesser.com/PQC. My thanks again to the folks at GTS Learning for their live labs at professormesser.com/live labs. And of course, we do one of these every month. A lot of people ask me, when's your next one? It's exactly where you would think it would be at professormesser.com/calendar. You'll know exactly when the next one of these is. Well, this is pretty much finished the first hour of our study group. We've got another hour or so where I'll open up the phone lines. We'll just talk about whatever in the after show. This pretty much ends the formal part of the study group. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support throughout the month. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Okay, let's see if we can. Thank you. Welcome to the after show, everyone. This is kind of an open phone line after show kind of scenario. You can ask any questions you would like. There were some that were follow-up questions from what we were doing. A toner probe. It doesn't necessarily interfere with the connection because there is no connection. You are disconnecting whatever's there and plugging in your toner probe or your tone generator and then using the probe at the other end. So generally it's done on a link that is not active. You don't usually see that on an active link. You can run it on an active link. It is possible with alligator clips and other ways to do it, but commonly you just disconnect what's there and you're really just trying to find two ends of a cable without having anything else in the link. Let's open up the phone line, shall we? Shall we? I've got phone lines. Let's get these going. I'll give you the phone number in just a moment. Let me host a show, and then I need to call into the show myself so that I can talk to you. It's all done in the cloud. It's like magic. So let's call in myself. Beep, 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 beep. And then,
thank you for calling.
Thank you. Well, you're welcome. And then what do? I type a thing in here, and I type a pound sign, and then what happens?
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
I think we all know that that's redundant. And I type in that number, and...
Welcome.
Oh, welcome. Welcome to you too. Hello and welcome. Let's see if I can change some of these things around on my screen. We'll do that so that you can see the phone number. If you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to. Phone number 855-785-7545. It's also free on Skype. No Skype minutes required with a +1 855-785-RJ45. It's one of those that does come in handy. And the people already calling in on the phone lines. Let's turn up the volume just a little bit. And let's go to the first one, to the 559 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Is that me?
Yes, it is. Hi, what's your name?
Hello.
What's your question?
We spoke on the A+ group. I just want to find out, did you manage to find out what the process was for those memory chips?
You'll have to jog my memory a bit.
So I have a HP server, and I had tried to upgrade the memory, all of the chips, but it wasn't taking all the chips, so I had to replace the new ones with some old ones.
Gotcha.
And you said to me there's a way to check there's maybe a utility or a program in which we were able to check somehow if those memory chips were actually faulty or not faulty.
Well, most of the time,
you want to put it on the
manufacturer will have a utility often that is for your computer specifically. So it's really a motherboard hardware tool to be able to do that. And that's one of the best ways to do it, is to plug in the memory, run their hardware tool, and it's written specifically for your motherboard. So it's one of the best ways to check the hardware that's on your system. It's kind of hard to tell once you have the memory and you don't have a box it came in, you don't have any details about where it was ordered from, it becomes a little more difficult because it's hard to identify a memory stick just with the letters and the little stickers that are on there. Sometimes there is a model number that you can go back to a crucial.com or a Kingston, .com, be able to do that. For those of you that already are just interested in checking memory, if the system can see the memory already, you could run a memory diagnostic within Windows. There's a memory diagnostic available inside of Windows that can easily do that. But in your scenario, it just wasn't seeing the memory at all. So obviously Windows would not be able to test memory that the system can't see to begin with. So always go back to the manufacturer and find out where's your hardware diagnostics utility. And maybe they can also give you more information on here's the type of memory that is specific to this particular system. You can't always trust the memory finders that are available from the online memory sellers. You can go to crucial.com and they got a great front end, and you can put in the model of your system. It tells you the memory that it uses, but it's not 100% accurate always. You should always cross-reference against what the manufacturer says the memory is. And as you found, you have to be very specific. And when you're dealing with memory, you have to exactly the right kind of memory, because anything that's outside of spec is not going to work properly in your system. It's just a little bit more of a challenge.
So what's this thing about VGA mode? I was a bit confused, but then within your tutorial, one of your questions, you said to put the computer in VGA mode. Just would you like to clarify what VGA mode is?
Well, I talked a little bit about it.
Something VGA is the cable, isn't it?
Well, VGA is a memory standard, or excuse me, a video standard. So we often talk about the connectors and the cables as being VGA cables, and that's where it came from, is from that original standard. But the type of resolution, 640 by 480, with a particular set of frequencies that are in use, is a standard called VGA. And that's why if you go to Windows and you start it up in a recovery mode, one of the options in there is to start your Windows in VGA mode, which means the most basic, not the most basic, but certainly a very, very basic video configuration mode that is as generic as possible and will work across the widest number of monitors that are available for you to plug into, because practically every monitor in the world is designed to work in this VGA mode. And that's why it's something you see in Windows, you see it in Linux, you see it in anything that's connecting to a standard monitor. There's a way to start up the system in this mode that is just a very basic, generic resolution of 640 by 480 pixels. And it's something that when you're troubleshooting, that can help a lot because it rules out any problems with some high resolution monitor video card incompatibility. Makes it very simple.
All right, well, I'll try and do some more research on it, but thanks. The other thing I wanted to ask was, what is this GTS learning thing? I did hear you mention it, but I wasn't too sure what GTS learning actually is.
GTS Learning is a company that makes IT training materials. They have a lot of great materials for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and many others that I have nothing. I don't work on any of some of these others, but GTS Learning is a large organization that covers a lot of different topics and a lot of different training materials. And they just have a very nice lab that I like, has a hands-on. And they're nice enough to advertise here their products and also give discounts. And so I like to let people know, here's some labs that maybe if you don't have the hardware yourself, here's something you can run online in a browser and you don't have to have any extra hardware to make that happen.
Okay, brilliant. I'll give that a go. Thanks anyway. Thanks very much.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thanks for calling. That's so I do run into that from time to time too, and working through those. I love their labs. Normally I demonstrate it, but we were short of time today to have that there. But they've got some great videos on their website you can always go through. Let's go to the 281 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, this is Beth.
Hey, Beth. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi. So next Saturday on the 13th, I'm sitting for my 901 exam.
Excellent.
And I feel pretty prepared. I'm just a little worried about, I guess, maybe the more specific, like numbers and, resolutions and pins and this and that. Like, how much of that do I need to, memorize for this and be worried about, I guess?
It's difficult to know for sure because they don't tell you in the exam objectives what level of detail you need to know for these things. What they do for something like memory is they say you need to recognize the differences in these memory sticks that you'll have. So there's a DDR, here's a DDR2, here's a DDR3. And so in my videos, how would I be able to tell the difference? Well, they have different number of pins. So I tell you what the different number of pins are. They have a different notch. So I show you where the notches are. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to ask somebody what the number of pins is. All they really say in the exam objectives is you need to understand the differences between them. So that's one wherever you start looking through, how much do I need to know? Sometimes it is a little vague. Sometimes you don't know what you need to know or the level of detail you need to know for some of these things. I think most of the time on the exam, I tell people if there's a set of statistics or specifications that you're just can't get past, you're in the weeds, you're wrapped around the axle, it's not something that's clicking for you, just ignore it. Go to the next thing. You should be spending your time on something else that you could learn rather than spending your time a lot on these other things. This comes up a lot, for instance, on the Network Plus exam. There is a tiny section on the Network Plus exam that is part of a much larger section that's part of a series of sections that's part of a series of domains that talks about subnetting. And yet a lot of people spend a week trying to learn subnetting, and then they sit down for their exam and they might not have any questions on subnetting because it's such a tiny little part of the exam. I feel the same way about the number of pins on a memory module. It's this tiny little section in a much smaller piece that's in a much larger section that's in a section that's a separate domain that's part of a series of domains. So what I usually tell people is don't sweat the small stuff. Concentrate instead on how this memory is used in the computer. What are the differences between DDR, DDR2, and DDR3? How do those differences manifest themselves when you're putting together a system? Why would I choose one over the other? What happens if I try to plug a 2 DDR2 module into a DDR3 slot. Those are the more application, the use of, not computer application, but applying that knowledge is what I see that mostly on the exam. And I think that's where people should really focus their efforts rather than all the ones and zeros and trying to figure out all those specific details. You, of course, do need to know things like speeds and feeds. They tell you on the exam objectives, you need to know how fast these things run. When they show you that, obviously you need to know numbers there. But if they're not telling you, you need to know the number of pins on a memory, then I probably wouldn't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure that piece out. Stick to the exam objectives and I think you'll be okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I really enjoy your live videos and all of your material. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. The exam objectives aren't perfect, but it's all we have. And they're really much more detailed than anything else you will ever find from any other certification company, anywhere, anybody doing certification. It is strong, the amount of information they provide, a whole lot of detail. So use those exam objectives to as much as you can. And if you feel that the exam objectives are not giving you what you need, or it's not telling you exactly what you want, maybe they don't want that information. Go to the next thing. Work through those other pieces. So go back to the phones. The 913 area code. Thanks for holding. What's your name?
This is Matt.
Hey, Matt.
We got the entire Highland Community College computer support classroom on the phone with you here.
Hey, Highland. Thanks for calling.
I was just wondering, I'm really confused as to the difference between the BOOTREC / rebuild BCD and the FixBOOT thing.
Yeah. That is probably
what's
something
different?
that's also important to know for the 901 exam, because that's a huge section of the troubleshooting is getting past some of these challenges. Part of the confusion, of course, is that BOOTREC command has so many different things that it does, and the different commands that are in there are completely different in what they're changing. Some of them are changing the way that the drive is configured to boot. Other parts of that command are changing how Windows interprets what it should be doing once the computer has booted. Well, that in itself you're trying to break through all those different pieces is a challenge. So let's break them down into the smaller pieces. I will bring up my presentation that kind of goes through that part of the command, because that's going to come in not just handy on the exam. This is something I use, by the way, when people say, why am I having to learn all of these dumb commands? People even say, this is one of the reasons that these A+ certification, you're never going to use this. And then I point to this and go, I use this all the time. This is something constant that I would use all the time when I'm troubleshooting the boot process. And probably the most time you'll run into this is when you're doing something like cleaning up a system after getting a virus. Well, the viruses will mess up the boot process, or the process of removing the virus messes up the boot process. And you'll find a lot of the times they tell you, you need to go and reconfigure the boot sector, and this is the way you do it. So one that we deal with let's start with the one you mentioned first, which was the rebuild BCD. And it was actually in our slides today. We talked about the BCD as the answer to one of the questions that was there. I don't think it was the answer, but one of the options we had available. This is the boot configuration data is what that BCD stands for. Whenever you boot your computer up, you may not even see it happen because you may not have multiple operating systems on your computer. You may not have it pause when it's starting up. But Windows, when it starts up, needs to know where Windows lives. It gets everything ready to go, and it says, okay, let's start the operating system. Where does it live? And it's the BCD, the boot configuration data, that tells the Windows kernel, you need to go here and start Windows. In fact, this is what you would update. Let's say we're going to install on your computer Windows Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8. It was going to be a triple boot system. You weren't going to do virtualization. Who needs different configurations there? We want to have all these three operating systems running on the same computer, and we want to choose which one we're going to run during the startup process. You can have this boot configuration data present you a menu during the Windows startup, and the BCD, if you choose Vista, the BCD points over to the Vista section. If you choose Windows 7, the BCD points over to the Windows 7 directory. If you choose Windows 8, the BCD points you to Windows 8. So it's a very important part of getting Windows running. If something goes wrong and the BCD becomes corrupted or it gets deleted or it gets modified for some reason, you're going to have to fix that. And that's why one of the first things you can do is there's a BOOTREC command to scan OS. And that scan OS is a good one because it will tell you on the system, here's where Windows is. That comes in handy. I do want to know where Windows happens to be, and it will find all the Windows installations on your computer. I ran it on here, and it found one in D:Windows. And then I can use that whenever I'm trying to fix my boot configuration data. Let me slide down to that one because the boot configuration data and rebuilding it will now hunt for those Windows that happen to be on the system and say, okay, do you want to add that Windows to your boot list? And it will rebuild that boot list for you and get your system back up and running again. So this is a very common one to do after something like a virus has taken effect or you've recovered from malware, because that often gets corrupted. This is a great way to recreate it, and now you know there's no problem running that boot configuration data. There are other BOOTREC commands you need to know. The two that most people know is the fixMBR command, the master boot record. Master boot record is where you're telling your system, here's what you boot from. But then there's also a sector boot record, a boot sector that needs to be there. That's what the FixBOOT does. And that's why you'll see often people will say, run both of those so you can fix the master boot record, assuming your computer uses that. And then you can also update the boot sector that's in the particular partition that you're pointing to. So that kind of covers BOOTREC very, very quickly, but it's one that does come in handy if you're ever trying to update your system and recover from one of these corruptions. You can get your system back up and running pretty easily by using these if that's what the problem happens to be. Did I lose you, Matt?
All right, that really clears a lot of it up, man.
Well, good luck.
It's been a huge help to all of us down here.
Well, congratulations. Thanks for calling. Good luck on your exams. And you're more than welcome to call back next week if you have any other questions. I think we lost Matt. Thanks, Matt, and all the folks there that are listening in. This is one where these commands are on the 901 exam. The presentation I was just showing you was my troubleshooting the boot process slides. They were from the 22901 section 4.2, and it's my presentation number 3 that called troubleshooting the boot process. That's where those slides are from. If you want to watch the video, I go into detail. I run through some demonstrations of that. I think I do most of those live, or at least show you the results of me when I ran it live. So you can kind of get a feel for how those things work. Let's go to the phones. Sorry, I've been talking too much. You're holding for so long. Thank you so much. The 504 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Craig. How you doing?
Hey, Craig. Thanks for calling.
Good, no problem. Look, I've been watching your live videos since I found out about them about 3 months ago for the A+. But I have a question for you. I took the A+ last week, and unfortunately, I didn't pass it. I made a 632, which was, I guess, close. I don't know how
close.
how many questions off I was, but I guess my question to you is, because I'm studying, well, I'm going to take a few days off before I go back and hit it again.
Okay.
But my question to you is, do you know how the scoring goes on those tests, or like if I'm off by maybe 1 or 2 questions, or any type of thing like that?
Here's the problem for us who are taking the exam is that nobody knows how CompTIA decides what the scoring is. The scoring for these exams is so different. For example, if you look at the 901 exam, I'm going to try to pull up something that I have here that might help me with these pieces. So on the 901 exam, we know we have to you might get 90 questions. They might give you less than 90 questions. They might give you a maximum of 90. Usually it's less than 90 questions. And the passing score is a 675. But the range for the passing score is between 100 and 900. So it's not even between 0 and 1,000. It's between 100 and 900. And we really think, based on what we know of people who've taken the exam, that apparently each question has its own scoring mechanism. So each question is worth a different number of points depending on what's being asked.
Okay.
So there's the answer to your question. I think CompTIA does this intentionally. There's no way to know how they score this thing, and they don't want really you to know, or else they would have made it much easier. It would have been 0 to 100, and it would have been a percentage, and we would have been done with this. But there's in the industry dealing with certifications, for some reason, they think the scoring process is some type of secret sauce that nobody else needs to be able to duplicate. I think they've thought about this way too much because it's really just questions, and I'm answering them.
Yeah.
But quick answer to your question, we just don't know, and there's no way to know. So you kind of just have to do the best you can and see what the answer turns out to be, see what the final score turns out to be at the end. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'm gonna I guess go back and study on some of the things I think I may have missed.
Well, they should have given you a sheet of paper at the end that says, here's the sections where you got questions wrong. And you may be able to figure out, okay, I need to spend more time on this networking piece, or I need to spend more time on this troubleshooting piece. And that would at least point you in the right directions. Make sure you have the exam objectives. Those are a great checklist. And you can go through each one of those sections and see if all the topics listed there match with what you should know in your mind. If you can go through one of those exam objectives and explain it to someone else, then I think you've gotten that one down. You can check it off. Yes, I know that. Let's go to the next one. Let me explain these to someone else. Can I do that? And that's a good way to know if you're really retaining the information.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm going to study on this next time when I take it and just go by the objectives and go down that list. But the place where I took the test, her printer wasn't working when I finished the test, so of course she couldn't get me the printout. And she said to call Pearson VUE, who transferred me to CompTIA, who transferred me back to Pearson VUE, and nobody could figure out how I could get at least that sheet showing what every study.
That was kind of some bad advice, because Pearson VUE won't provide you with that information. CompTIA won't provide it with that information. The only way you can just get that information of what you didn't get right on the exam is on that printout that comes out of the printer at the end of the exam. You have got to make sure, if this happens again, and for those of all of you listening, if somebody says, my printer isn't working, your answer should be, I will stand here while you call Pearson VUE and get this printer to work, because when you walk out the door, you will never see that piece of paper ever again. And I can tell you this after many, many, many people have told me this story. Never walk out of that room until they give you the paper. Even if you pass, make sure they give you the paper. It's your only evidence that you passed. They're supposed to stamp it and mark it and show that you passed. They have to have that working. They're required in their contract with Pearson VUE to make sure that their printer is working. And if it isn't, they have to fix that right then. So make sure you get on the phone with Pearson VUE, make sure they're aware. You should get a copy of it in some possible way. That's unfortunate that you weren't able to get that, but maybe you kind of know where the different sections are that you can work on. Maybe at least you can go about it that way.
Yeah, I can. Cause I there are some questions that like the simulations I took your advice and did them last. And so I think I got those right. But there were 2 questions I know where I think I probably did hit. And most of it's probably like doing some networking stuff.
Good. You should concentrate on that. Spend the time on that. Concentrate on those pieces, and hopefully the next exam you get will have some other options available. And you might want to, if you have the option, maybe try a different testing center next time too.
Well, I am next time. I'm not going back to this. Yeah.
I don't blame you, Craig.
That result was real bad. So I appreciate your help, and I'll continue watching. And I also purchased those notes that you had.
Thank you,
for
Craig.
the 901, and that's real good information on there. So just to let you know, good job on that.
I appreciate that feedback, and thanks for your support.
Have a good.
Thank you. Appreciate you calling. That's so frustrating when I hear those stories. And I agree, in the chat room, they go, you should have reported that. You can report it, and you probably should, but you still don't get that piece of paper back. That's such an important piece of paper. How can they not have that working properly? That drives me crazy. As someone who is so focused on this, like you're there, you're taking an exam, like it's the most important thing in your day. Like that's it. Probably in your week, it's a pretty important thing. Yeah, printer's not working. Fix the printer. Why am I standing here? Why are you standing here? Fix the printer. So frustrating. Let's go 410 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes, I am. My name's Carl Burgess.
Hey, Paul, thanks for
And
calling.
First thing, thank you. Thank you for your videos.
You're welcome, sir.
They did help me get my A+ certification.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. One question that needs to be looked at as far as the 901
Yes.
is the HTMI cable. I had a question on my exam that asked me how many pins were in the cable itself.
This is one of those
And
where,
that was kind of weird.
well, in the exam objectives, and although technically sharing information about your exam is probably not allowed due to the candidate agreement that you signed when you took the exam, I will say, now that you've mentioned it, and we really can't rewind time, is the part of the exam objectives that deal with cables do talk about the cable setup, how the cables look, how to recognize them. And as I mentioned earlier, knowing I have in my videos things about how to recognize them, but how many ways to even do that? In fact, if you look at an HDMI cable, I can't even tell how many pins are in it because you can't see how many pins are in it. It's just one of those questions they throw in there, and there's no way to guess or even attempt to know that they would ask such a thing because it's such an unusual question. So it's one of those you just kind of have to kind of keep it going and see if it doesn't get any weirder. That's why it's important to know as much as you can broadly across everything that's in the exam objectives, because you're going to get something on the exam you weren't prepared for. There's no way that all my videos can give you every possible thing you would ever need to know to pass the exam. There's no book that's written that can give you everything you would ever possibly know to pass the exam. There's no sample question bank that would tell you everything you would have to know to pass the exam. You have to use as many as possible, and then hope when you get in the exam you're able to retain enough so that if you get one of those weird questions, it really won't matter because you got everything else.
Right.
And that's unfortunate,
Alrighty.
but that's what we got to go with.
Right. Oh, yeah. All righty. Well, again, thank you for your videos and your study guide.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate for your support, and thanks for the call, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
That is frustrating, though. You spend all that time studying. We have exam objectives, which, as I mentioned, it sometimes do not go into specifics of everything we would need to know. And I got to say, it's a bad question. You're asking me how many pins are in HDMI? Really? This is an episode of really? And I'm just going to say really over and over again. But instead, we're going to go to the 510 area code and talk to this person. Hi, what's your name?
Hello?
Hello. Hi, what's your name?
Hello? Hi, my name is Dennis. I have some questions about the boot process in general, so I thought maybe I could give you a hypothetical and you could explain the boot process around that.
Well, let's see if we can. Yes, hit me.
And that is if I have so if I have a WIM file and the partition is completely trashed, but I have a copy of the WIM file that was used to construct the system from the get-go,
Yep.
Can I build and rebuild all of the boot files necessary? And if so, can you kind of walk through in general how that would happen?
There's a few different ways to do this. For those who are listening who've never dealt with a WIM file before, it's WIM. It's a Windows image file. It's a standard way that Microsoft has decided, here's how we can put together a Windows image and be able to run with those images. It's become especially useful in today's world of virtualization, because what you effectively have is an entire working system inside this image file. And of course, we've been using images with our computer systems forever. We've been using them in different ways. They haven't always been a WIM format, but if you've ever used virtualization software, there are some other standard imaging configurations. VMware has their own type of imaging. There's VirtualBox has their own type of imaging. There are some standard open imaging standards. Microsoft's WIM has become almost de facto a system standard, an industry standard, because so many people use it. It is such a very common way to collect and store images. In fact, Microsoft Windows, the latest versions of Windows, are set up, you can configure them to not boot from the hard drive, but to boot from a WIM file itself and use it effectively like a virtual machine software would use it. It would boot from the WIM. You don't even have to install the WIM or image a system with the contents of the WIM. It's a self-contained system that can run Windows as it is. It becomes handy to do that. There are Microsoft has some WIM utilities that will allow you at the command line to take an image file and copy those image contents to a hard drive. That's one way to do it. There are a number of open source utilities that can do it in a more graphical way, and you can manage your WIMs a lot better. In my 7680 course, I go through manipulating the WIM and working through it in detail, because it's an important part of Windows distribution is being able to manipulate the WIM and have it work through all of those. And I don't have those up on my screen. I'm looking right now at what I've got available. But in those videos, my 7680 videos would be a good place to go, because I go through excruciating detail during the deploying section of creating an image, capturing the image, deploying the image, working with it as a virtual image system. It's not a simple, oh, let me answer it on the phone for you. There's a few steps involved, but I go through it and demonstrate it in those videos. So that might be a good place for you to go.
Great. Okay, so I'll go check out that video. 7680, you said, right?
7680, and section 2 is the section for deploying Windows 7. And that's where I give an overview. I create an image, I capture it, I prepare it for deployment, I stick it on a system, and I even talk about working with the virtual hard disks themselves. And I've got demonstrations on how to do that. It's written from the approach of somebody who's doing this from a Windows system administrator perspective. But if you're working with WIMs, you're probably at that level anyway, and you can at least get a feel for that. If you're running a later Windows version, Windows 8, Windows 10, there are some other WIM things that you can do to boot directly from the WIM. You may want to look at some other Microsoft references there to work through those. It becomes pretty nice to have. A lot of people will set up their own WIMs and just boot from the WIM that they happen to be using at that time. You can really get pretty complex configurations with it.
So is SysPrep and all those things covered on the A+? Are those questions that... Hardly
at all. Practically nothing about SysPrep or WIM or deployments of those, or even anywhere close to the exam objectives for the A+. The only time you even get into those are really the Microsoft courses. And the 7680 is the one for Windows 7. There's obviously courses Microsoft has for Windows 8, Windows 10 that are very similar to that, but at least I don't have videos for those. The Windows 7 ones are just available and something you could even look at right now.
Okay, so thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate the call. That's one where you can do some really cool stuff with WIM. And Microsoft keeps extending the capabilities of it too, especially in this world of virtualization. Let's talk to the 773 area code, if I click the button properly. Hi, what's your name? The 773 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hello?
Hey, there he is. Hi, what's your name?
Are you? Hi, my name is Keith.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, how you doing? I really appreciate the work you're doing with the videos and this whole teaching. This is awesome. I am actually excited.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
But my question has to deal with thinking about taking an A+ and a Net Plus combination, and also, or maybe the A+ or the CCNA. And I'm trying to figure out, like, which one is a better choice to even possibly come from that and get into a level 1 position in the company of some sort. Just want to know your ideas on that.
It is one where it's difficult for me to answer because nobody knows what the people hiring want from you. And the answer actually varies depending on who you ask. What I normally tell people is nobody can answer that really but you, because you're in a very particular part of the world, particular geography, maybe the city that you're in, have a different type of hiring managers, some that want a lot of knowledge of people who are coming in. There's some hiring managers that want people that have practically no knowledge, and they'll just train them as they go. And there's advantages and disadvantages for the hiring company, because if they hire somebody who's knowledgeable, they probably have to pay them a little bit more. If they hire somebody with no knowledge, they probably can pay them a little bit less. So there might be a business decision from their mind. But either way, you really need to know that before you start down the path of, I'm going to go get these certifications. So one of the first things I tell people is go find out what the hiring managers want. Go check out Indeed and Dice and Monster and Career Builder and whatever you can. Find every possible job entry for people who are hiring in your area and find out what they're looking for. And they might say, we want a minimum of an A+, or they might say, we want a minimum of a CCNA routing and switching. It just depends on who's hiring and what they're trying to do. Or they might say, we just need somebody who's willing to learn. So it really just depends on what you run into. That's going to give you a pretty good feel for what do I need to start learning. It might also help, and I tell people this, it's a much longer process, but one that can be much better in the long run, is to become active in the technology user groups in your area. There's probably a Microsoft user group in your area. There's probably a VMware user group. There's probably a Cisco user group. There's usually user groups of these larger organizations. And the people going to these user groups are the people that are in these larger companies. And they are usually ones that are either hiring for these help desk positions, or they know the people that are hiring. And it's good to get to know people that way. It's good to have a slice of pizza. Where do you work? What do you do? Really, I'm working towards a help desk position. In your organization, what do the help desk managers look for? What would be the best way for me to get in touch with them? What do you think I should work on to be somebody who would work in your organization? And they love to tell you these things. Oh, you should work on Microsoft. You should know Active Directory, or they'll tell you should know Linux. It just depends. Every company's different. That is some very good intel. That's some really good information, because then if you can learn those things and then show up at the door and they look at your resume and go, wow, you know all the things we have here. Like, oh yeah, I go to that user group. Or you can even ask the people at the user group once you get to know them, hey, I saw you guys are hiring. Do you want to put my name in? Because most of these companies, by the way, have referral programs where if you're already working there, you can refer someone else. And if they get a job, you get some money. So people love to refer for these things, because if they know you and they trust you, let me put your name in. If you get hired, I get $500 and you get $500 and everybody's happy. So there's actually motivation on their side to have you go in and interview with them on with their recommendation. So that is good stuff. I mentioned in an earlier study group that my first job I got in technology was right out of college, and I didn't know anybody that was in the company I was working for then. Every other job I've ever had in the industry, and there's been about 10 or 11 or 12, depending on how you count, every other job after that was somebody I knew there. There was some relationship with somebody who was already there. People like to hire people they know. So don't discount that. It might give you a leg up over somebody else who's walking in the door that nobody knows about them, but maybe has a little bit more knowledge than you do. Having that relationship in place may be the deciding factor.
Wow, awesome. I'm going to do this right out there, get on the phone.
Makes
Thank
difference.
you so much.
Good luck, Keith.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's remarkable how important that is. LinkedIn, once you get established in the industry, you know people, and you start linking them in. My LinkedIn is connected to only people I've ever worked with. So if I hear a job has come up, I'm working somewhere and a job comes up, I just tell the people on LinkedIn, hey, I got this job to be perfect for you. I thought of you when they talked about this job. If you want it, I know you're in Chicago and this job's in Chicago. I heard about it today and you may want to check that out. That's a good thing to have people help you and work through those things too. Can't miss that either. Let's go back to the phone lines. 856 area code. Are you there, caller? Hi, what's your name?
Hey, yes, I am, Professor Messer. This is Gene from Jersey. How are you?
Hey, Gene from Jersey. I'm good. How are you, sir?
Good. I spoke to you several times. My question today, Professor Messer, is can you point me in a direction where I could get more confident in training with a multimeter device?
There are some pretty good videos on the internet that talk about multimeters. That's usually where I go first for that type of, because it's more of a, it's not something that would take hours to learn, but it's useful. There's some very specific functions in the multimeter. You look at that thing to begin with, and it looks like they printed it in a different language. You're not sure what all, there's a big dial. You're not sure what all these different things do. But there's some great YouTube videos out there that talk about, set it to this, now we can check a battery. Set it to this, now we can plug it into an outlet. Set it to this, now we can check for continuity. And explains what all of those different little symbols mean. It's something you do have to be careful with, of course, because generally with a multimeter, there's some type of power involved. And it's something where you're first learning it that you don't, you would like to not electrocute yourself. It would be nice if you didn't kill yourself trying to do something with the multimeter. But when you can watch somebody else doing it and they're giving you those tips on YouTube, do it this way. Do not do it like this. That would be bad. And here's some good ways to start. I think those are some pretty good ways to do it. And it's remarkable once you figure it out and you're like, oh, that's it? Well, I got it then. It's one of those that just kind of clicks immediately. And now you've got that real core function. Oh, I can check a power supply. Now I can check the outlet. And you just go around checking everything at that point. Let me check the power supply in my laptop. Let me check the outlet in this room. It just becomes very simple at that point. But it's getting over that first hump and making sure that you don't kill yourself in the process that is the hardest.
That is absolutely correct. So I'm going to take your advice and try to pair it with somebody that's more experienced than I am, so I can get my confidence up, and that way I'm around to tell somebody else about it and possibly teach them.
That's the way to do it.
I have electrocuted myself. Thank you so much, Professor Messer.
Thanks for calling, Gene. Appreciate it. That's important too. In the chat room, people said, I was mentioning user groups and said, how do we find these user groups? Well, there's a few ways to do it. Ones you start with, and probably the ones that apply most for what we've been talking about today, would be the Microsoft user group. So that's an easy one. Google Microsoft user group in your particular geographical area, and you should get a list very easily. Same thing for VMware. I would think Cisco user groups, probably not as popular, but they're Linux user groups, completely different group of people, but still that could be something useful to do. Probably the Microsoft would be more of the corporate set. Although these days, every organization has Linux. They may not be using it on their core servers, but they have Linux. They have Linux people in their organization. So sometimes being on the fringe of a technology that is not mainstream could actually be advantageous, because although there's fewer of them and probably not as many jobs, they're probably paid a little bit better because it's so hard to find people who are knowledgeable. As old technology does that. As technology fades away, there's some organizations that have a lot of this old technology that still need to keep it running, but there's fewer people that know about it. There's a number of organizations that have really made quite a penny on just supporting some of these older systems, and having that there becomes handy. In the chat room, people are talking about discounts for the exam. There's a few that are obvious. If you're someone who is just taking the exam, you're not a student, you could get a 10% discount on my website by going to professormesser.com/vouchers. If you are a student, there is a significant discount. You would need an EDU email address, and that is really what designates you as a student. But if you have an EDU email address, .edu, then there is an academic store. So CompTIA Academic Store, just Google that. That will take you to, and it's like a 50% discount on these vouchers. So absolutely take advantage of that if you're a student. In the chat room, talking about a disabled discount for CompTIA exams, I would contact CompTIA directly and find out what their options are, because not only they might have discounts available, they absolutely can set you up with a specific exam environment that will give you the things you need for whatever your disability happens to be. If you can't see very well, they can set you up so that you can see the exam properly. If you need extra time, they can set it up so you have extra time. They have all these things already in place. So contact CompTIA directly. I'm not at all associated with CompTIA. I don't communicate with them. I don't talk to them. I'm not part of their organization. I'm not part of their partners. And I do that intentionally. I like to be independent so that if something is not quite right, I can say it's not quite right. And there's nothing behind that or preventing me from saying it. If somebody, like the problem with the printer where the guy went and took his exam and it didn't print out at the end. Well, I can be as abrasive as I would like to about that because that is just remarkable that people would end up doing. I can be really angry about that, and nobody's going to come down on me because there's just me. There's nobody else here. That's just me. So I don't have to worry about that part so much in working through those pieces. But how frustrating is that? Nobody wants it. In the chat room, let's see if other things have come up with this. I think it's somebody did mention this earlier. Is there an SSD with a Molex connector? Well, SSDs are generally SATA type configurations. So there's the SATA data and the SATA power. There are converter cables you can get that will convert from a Molex connector to a SATA power, and they're awful. You really don't want to use them. They fail so often, and when they fail, I mean they catch on fire. That's not what you want when you're working with storage. Really, not what you want in most things. I was going to say not what you want inside your computer. Fire is not something you really want ever, unless maybe it's in a fireplace. That's the time when you might want fire. You want it in the engine of your car. That's kind of it. You want some combustion to get you going. Otherwise, you really don't want fire anywhere near you. So don't use those. If all you have is Molex, then you probably have a really, really old power supply. You probably want to get an updated power supply anyway and get one with SATA power associated with it. Most of the power supplies I buy these days are modular. So there's just a bunch of interfaces on the back and I just plug in a cable and the other end of the cable has what I need. I only have wires for what I'm using. There's not extra wires in the way of my cooling system. It becomes handy there to have that there. So that's one where I think that comes in handy to have that very specific SATA power. Don't convert a Molex old style power connector to SATA power. It's just a bad idea. Don't go like that. Just never seems to work out for the best in working through those. Well, we've come to the end of our second hour. That's I think that's going to do it for my voice. Can you tell? We've had a full second hour of calls. I want to thank everybody for joining me on the first hour for our Q&A. I always like doing these live streams. It's always a lot of fun. I wouldn't be able to do it without your participation. It'd be great if I asked a question, nobody answered. It'd be the worst stream ever, or maybe the best, depending on how you look at it. I want to thank everybody for joining me in the after show and the phone calls and the messages and the chat room and the questions that you ask. If anything ever comes up throughout the week, you can always contact me through the Contact Us link at the top or the bottom of my website. That comes really directly to me, and I always like to respond back if people have questions about that. Our next study group will be next week, the Network Plus study group. Again, next Wednesday, 12 o'clock noon my time. You can find out the conversion for your particular time in the world at professormesser.com/calendar. And of course, the next A+ study group will be in about a month as well. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A+ study group.